Hey there. Adding self-imposed constraints to your landscape photography can be a great way to boost creativity, but it can also make things a lot harder, which is what I think might happen today. Welcome to the beautiful south coast of Western Australia. Today we're going to try and get some beautiful Hasselblad X-Pan style fine art panoramic photos. I've got this first composition set up and I'm using these boulders at the front just to try and anchor the front of the frame. And I've already set up my X-Pan hack. If you want to work out how to do this on whatever camera you own, I'll put a link in the description to my most popular video explaining how to work out the size and math for this template yourself. So I'm going to go and fit the ND filters. Just going to fit the adapter. Try not to drop it in the sand. And I think I'm going to start with a 10-stop filter, just using these magnetic ones here. And they're super easy to use. I'll put a link in the description to these filters if you're interested in checking them out. So that's giving us a 15-second exposure. Let's go and get this first photo. And usually I feel a lot better after the first one's done. 2-second timer. So not fantastic, but I'm sure we're going to get something better. Let's move on and find a better composition. Slightly unconventional tripod setup for this next composition. And what I'm trying to do is just isolate parts of this scene so we can have the water moving around it and actually create that kind of fine art effect. But there are some challenges when trying to combine long exposure photography with panoramic photography. Panoramic photography, especially with wider lenses, is tricky because you have to really try and fill the frame in some ways, but then you combine long exposures with it and you're trying to simplify and minimize the thing. That's why for this next shot, I've zoomed in to 70 millimeters, which is the most I can get on this lens. And we might even have to throw on the 70 to 200 just so I can start to pick out more details and really simplify the scene. It is a beautiful winter day. You've got some sunshine, a little bit of clouds, and the best thing in terms of long exposure photography is there's hardly any wind to vibrate the tripod during those long exposures. I couldn't resist it. I had to do a slightly longer exposure. So this time I've dropped the ISO to 100 and we've got just about a 13-minute exposure. And what I'm trying to do is get this thing kind of central, but get a little bit of this foreground in the panoramic element. So we get water sweeping around these rocks and we get some big waves crashing out there. So it's actually a beautiful sweep of the landscape here. And if I wasn't limiting myself to panoramic photography, I would probably take this. You can see this is a 16:9 because you're watching this in video format, but I would probably take something like a 16:9 format, but I'm going to be disciplined and I'm going to stick to this panoramic challenge. Let me know if in the comments whether you would just give up on the challenge and just do whatever you wanted, or whether you think this kind of self-imposed limitation is a good thing or a bad thing. All right, let's take a look at that. Oh, and another really challenging thing once you start getting to those really long exposures above, say, 5 minutes, is that quite often the exposure is going to change. If I just swing you around, you can see up there that the sun has gone behind that big bank of cloud, and it might not show up on this video, but the whole scene has gone a lot darker than when I metered the original exposure before fitting those ND filters. We could end up with quite an underexposed photo. Looks like that sun might pop out from the clouds, and that's where, when you're doing this kind of, I wouldn't call it ultra long exposure, I'd call it moderate exposure photography, is sometimes you just need to have a bit of time and have a little tiny bit of luck on your side, but the more you're out there, the more luckier you get. Even though long exposure photography can be challenging sometimes, it does mean it gives you an excuse or a reason to just sit down and just enjoy where you are. This is such a beautiful afternoon. I'm so lucky to be able to be out here. For this shot, I'm going to try something a bit different. I'm going to whack on a polarizer first, and I'm just going to rotate that just to get the effect that I want, and then I'm going to add on an ND filter. And I'm just looking at the ocean, and it's going to allow us to darken down the ocean. Next, we're going to add the 10-stop filter on top of the polarizer. And if I check my app, that's going to give us a 25-second exposure, and I want a bit more than that. So I'm going to go and add on the 3-stop filter. And I love this stacking ability of these filters. So now we've got the polarizer, and I metered after I detached the polarizer, and now we've got to account for 13 stops, which is going to give us 3-minute and 25-second exposure. It's got to use the bulb timer for this. If you're wondering why I'm not overly concerned with stacking 3 filters together in terms of things like vignetting, it's because when I decided to buy this new filter system, I deliberately sized up the size of the filters so that when I stack multiple filters, I don't have to worry about that vignetting effect. And also, if I'm at 70mm, that's not going to be a problem anyway. And watch this video next to learn how to create your own X-Pan hack for whatever camera you own. Please subscribe. I'm Jason Roberts, and happy landscapes. Bye.